The lost station at Liverpool Exchange was a 10-platform mainline station. It once served destinations such as Bradford, Leeds, Windermere, Glasgow, Edinburgh and Newcastle. Regular local services also operated to Rochdale, Blackpool, Bolton, Preston, Southport, Wigan and Manchester. The origins of the stations go back to 1844 on the Bolton, Wigan and Liverpool Railway Company's desire to break the monopoly of the Liverpool-Manchester Railway. Later becoming the Liverpool and Bury Railway, it was absorbed into the Manchester and Leeds Railway in 1846 and became the Lancashire and Yorkshire Railway on the 9th of July 1847. Joining the route at Walton was the East Lancashire Railway's Liverpool, Ormskirk and Preston Railway of 1846. The first station for the two companies was at Great Howard Street in 1848. However, the two companies couldn't agree on a joint name for the station. The Lancashire and Yorkshire preferred Brother Jail after the nearby prison, whilst the East Lancashire Railway went with Great Howard Street. Passenger traffic soon overwhelmed Great Howard Street, and an extension to a new terminus on Tyne Street in the city's business area was soon authorised. Opening on the 13th of May 1850, the L&Y called it Liverpool Exchange, while the East Lancashire Railway called it Tyne Street. The line was elevated above street level on brick arches, the frontage towering 90 feet above the street level so as to clear the Leeds-Liverpool Canal. The new station required the clearance of much slum property, with the displacement of all the residents. The area back then had a reputation for undesirables, one that would lead to a notorious murder in later years. The first exchange station was stone-built, consisted of 2 stories and was 117 feet wide in an Italian style. A 30-foot wide driveway sloped up to the frontage with ornamental steps for foot passengers. On the 1st of October 1850, trains from the Liverpool, Crosby and Southport Railway joined the lines into Exchange, Tyne Street. This line had opened at 2 stages between Liverpool and Southport. By the 14th of June 1855, the Lancashire and Yorkshire absorbed the Liverpool and Crosby. Then, by the 13th of August 1859, the East Lancashire Railway. From that date, the station was just called Liverpool Exchange. On the 3rd of August 1874, the senseless murder of Richard Morgan took place. The attackers, 3 local youths, kicked him to death while bystanders did nothing to help. The attack only ended after a railway policeman intervened. The 3 lads from the local slums were caught and convicted, one getting a life sentence, the other 2 hanged. By the 1880s, traffic at Liverpool Exchange had grown so much that a further expansion was needed. By August 1883, permission had been given for the complete rebuild of Exchange Station alongside the widening of the viaducts. The new station was built in 2 halves and would have 10 platforms beneath a ridged iron glazed roof. The old station remained in use during the rebuild, the Pall Mall side built first. The platforms were numbered 1 to 10, 1 at the east and 10 at the west. The platforms formed 6 islands. A roadway was provided between platforms 3 and 4 for goods and parcels. This was accessed from a large entrance on the east side of the station. By 1900, the Southport line had become very busy with the spread of housing along the route, and capacity was becoming a problem. The L&Y were also concerned about competition from the Liverpool trams. To deal with this, the L&Y opted to electrify the route, opening through to Southport on the 5th of April 1904. Though this was not without teething troubles. A problem at the power station, suspending service between the 11th of April 1904 and the 13th of May. A serious accident also occurred at Hall Road in July 1905. For details, see my video Tragedy at Hall Road. The electrification, however, was a great success, and lines to Aintree via Ford and Kirkdale were live by the 3rd of December 1906. By the 1st of April 1913, it had reached Ormskirk, also included was a short section of the West Lancashire line to Crossens. The station remained very busy throughout the 20s and 30s, but the storm clouds of the Second World War were soon looming. By the late 1930s, the original Lancashire and Yorkshire electric stock was in need of replacement, and despite the outbreak of war, the order for new trains went ahead. Unfortunately, Exchange suffered several bomb attacks during the Second World War, sections of the viaduct receiving a direct hit in December 1940. In May 1941, a section of the roof and outer wall were destroyed, severely damaging one of the new electrics. Repairs were soon put in hand by late 1942, and the station was back in operation. At the end of the war, the station's worst damaged areas were completely rebuilt, including the destroyed outer wall and roof. The post-war period saw a boom in passengers, but this was to be short-lived. On the 2nd of April 1951, electric service to Aintree via Linacre Road ceased, but worse was to come. The reshaping of British Railways, or Beaton Report of 1963, recommended the closure of the Liverpool Exchange to Southport line, as well as the line to Wigan via Kirkby. Thankfully, these closures were rejected. Many had spent their entire careers in railway service, and it was disappointing for them to see the railways being decimated. One such was John Henry Harrison, who was Chief Inspector Exchange. Here he is being congratulated for 48 years' service. Meanwhile, the Merseyrail Area and Land Transport Study of 1966 recommended long-proposed plans for the underground Merseyrailway extensions. Additional to this was a plan to link the line from Exchange through to Central. With the loss of services, platforms 1, 2 and 3 were closed and filled in for parking. In 1969, the Merseyrail Passenger Transport Authority was formed, and plans for the underground extensions were approved by an Act of 1971. Also in 71, all Third Rail electric services were rebranded Merseyrail. To facilitate the underground extension, platforms 8, 9 and 10 were taken out of use, leaving just 4, 5, 6 and 7 operational. Third Rail being added to 4 and 5. Exchange's days were now numbered. Work soon commenced on constructing the new lines. Meanwhile, passengers continued to use an increasingly run-down Liverpool Exchange. Finally, the last day arrived, and the last departure for Liverpool Exchange was at 23:35 on Friday the 29th of April 1977, a special service to mark the station's closure. It ran to Liverpool Lime Street via Wigan Wallgate. The station became an undercover car park for a few years until its demolition. Also swept away were Exchange number 1 and number 2 signal boxes. The frontage of the station was saved and incorporated into an office block called Mercury Court, now renamed Liverpool Exchange. Surviving remains were still to be seen. Sections of the outer wall are seen here. This stonework was once the entrance to the subway linking Pall Mall with East Street. This section was approximately halfway point to the platforms. The large empty expanse here was the concourse and halfway point of the platforms, recently cleared for the new development. This change of brickwork marks the edge of the station's shed. Part of the undercroft of the approach viaduct is now an undercover car park, whilst the track bed above is also for parking. The former approach viaducts are still largely intact, though the run-down nature of the surrounding area reflects its rough and troubled past. The trains on the Merseyrail network now use the former viaduct to Great Howard Street before diving down under Leeds Street. At Leeds Street, the remains of some former buffer stops can be seen, but for how much longer? The replacement for Exchange came in the form of Moorfields, an architecturally challenged building at best. The reason that the entrance is up at first floor level is so it could connect with the city's planned elevated walkways. These were supposed to create a safe pedestrian access around the city, but instead were mostly used as elevated urinals. The busy Moorfield station is the host to trains from both the Wirral lines as well as those of the Northern. Extensions of the 70s were a great success and turned around the fortunes of the commuter lines of Merseyside, but the grand station of Liverpool Exchange will always be remembered.